Alright, in for 1500 at the Bellagio 510. I don't yet have the camera ready in this first one, in which small blind buys the button and cut off post 15 for missing the blinds. I'm first to act on a raise to 30 with ace king of hearts, cut off calls, and small blind 3 bets to 160. Given the additional dead money to start the hand, it's possible that small blind thinks my open is light and is trying to capitalize on the situation. Instead, I have a top tier holding and decide to play it aggressively and 4 bet to 370. Cutoff folds and small blind tank calls. With 1100 back, we take a flop heads up which comes 987, all clubs. Terrible flop for my hand, but when small blind checks, I'm going to take at least one stab, hoping that my opponent has the same hand or queens without a club. Pretty narrow targets, but I fire 400 and hold my breath for what feels like an eternity as my opponent considers his options. And after a bit of thinking, he thankfully lets it go. Next spot, I've got 4-5 of diamonds from middle position and call a $30 raise from under the gun. Small blind calls as well, and we go 3 ways to a flop of queen 9-7, all diamonds giving me a flush. Checks to me, I bet 50, small blind calls, under the gun folds. Heads up to a turn of a 9 of clubs pairing the board. Small blind checks and just going to keep going for value, and I bet 110. Looks like small blind doesn't have much though, and folds. And if you guys prefer diamonds at the poker table like I do, that can make you money on occasion, as opposed to the ones you gift to your partner around this time of year, please do me a favor and click the thumbs up and subscribe buttons. Shortly after, there's an under the gun raise to 30, and I've got the best starting hand and no limit hold'em, and 3 bet to 100 from middle position. Big blind and under the gun call, and the flop comes 9-6-4 with 2 diamonds and a heart. Big blind and under the gun check, and with a nut diamond in my hand, there aren't going to be too many turns that are bad for me, so I take the tricky route and check back. Turn comes a 4 of clubs pairing the board, and big blind leads for 120. Under the gun folds, and I proceed deceptively and just call. River comes to 8 of clubs, so it does complete some straights, but I'm not too concerned about those hands. Big blind does continue the aggression though, and he puts out 200. This seems like a good spot to try and go for some value against a 9, particularly since diamonds don't complete, and my hand could look like a missed draw. I raise to 660. Big blind goes into the tank, and after some deliberation, he releases his hand. No additional value, but always nice to have the best hand from start to finish. This next hand is one of the more exciting ones of the session. Under the gun limps, middle position raises to 40, hijack calls, I call from the cutoff with my favorite hand, 5-6 suited, small blind and under the gun call as well. We take a flop heavily multi-way which comes 9-7-4 with 2 diamonds and a spade, giving me more outs in a baseball game that goes extra innings. Checks to the hijack who bets 130, and with a monster draw, I'm going to press my equity and play this one like I flopped a set. I raise to 400. 3 players fold back to the hijack, who tanks and calls. Looking to drill the turn, it comes an offsuit deuce. Hijack checks with roughly 700 back, and I jam looking to maximize fold equity. I fade the snap call, and as my opponent looks like he's contemplating a fold, he ends up calling off instead for 730 total, and like a bad one night stand, I now gotta resort to plan B. Let's take a river. Next spot the straddle is on, low jack calls, and button raises to 70. I've got K9 suited in the small blind, and my senses tell me that I can take this one down via a light 3 bet, and I make it 250. Well, just like the disputes I get into with my partner, I'm wrong as a straddler and button call. We go 3 ways to a flop of jack 5-3 with 2 hearts and a club, so a complete whiff. I check, straddler checks, and button bets 500. I fold, and the straddler jams for about 2k effective. Button calls, and they go to a run out. Straddler tables pocket 9s, which is no good, against button's 5-7 of hearts. Not too long after, there's a middle position raise to 30. I decided just flat from the cutoff with pocket 10s, and the big blind calls as well. 3 ways to ace deuce with a diamond draw. Big blind and middle position check. I bet 30. Big blind folds. The initial raiser middle position calls, and we go heads up to 4th street, which comes to 8 of clubs. Middle position checks, and I like another bet as I can still get value from worse pairs and deny against picture cards. I bet 80 planning to check most rivers, and we do get to see the last community card as middle position calls. 5th street comes a jack of clubs, action checks through, and middle position tables the winning hand, pocket kings. Alright, after being on the wrong side of it in multiple hands, that's when this next spot develops. Hijack raises to 30, and as noted in a recent video, I like mixing in 3 bets in late position scenarios. This time I raise it to 100 from the button with Jack 9 of hearts. Hijack calls, and the flop comes 10-7-6 rainbow. Generally not the best flop for the 3-better, but I do flop the nut gutter. Hijack leads for 130, and I proceed with a call as I would with a majority of my holdings. Force 3 comes a king of spades, so a good theoretical card for my range, and specifically for my hand in this case, as I pick up a double gutter. Hijack checks this time, and I take the green light and fire 340. Hijack thinks a bit before, letting it go. Nice to lock up some chips with Jack high. We then play an 8-way $50 bomb pot, and I've got ace queen offsuit in the hijack. Flop comes 8-5-5 rainbow, and when it checks to me in late position, I'm going to try and take this one down, and I bet 130. Only big blind calls, and he should have one of 3 hands, a straight draw, an 8, or a 5. Hoping he has one of the 2 formers, I like to leverage most turns, which in this case comes the ace of diamonds. So an interesting card as I turn a showdown driven holding. When big blind checks though, I'm still going to proceed with the bet. I don't want to give any free card to an 8 or 6-7, and I put out 300. He doesn't think too long and releases his hand. Always nice to scoop a bomb pot. A few more hands to run through. We are 5-handed and I raise to 30 from the cutoff with Jack 9 of hearts. Button calls and small blind 3 bets to 160. I call and button calls as well. Looking for a good flop? It comes 8-7-6 with none of my suit. Small blind C bets 200. I fold and the button folds as well. Unfortunately no magic this time with the Jack 9 suited. Next time button raises to 30 and I 3 bet to 110 from the small blind with ace 5 of spades. Button calls, and we go heads up to king queen 6, all black and giving me the nut flush draw. I decide to check this one, and button checks back. Turn comes a 9 of clubs, which completes Jack 10, and puts up backdoor clubs. With the wet board, I now offer a delayed c-bet of 140. I don't expect a king to fold, but this bet should make a queen slightly uncomfortable, even if he has a straight draw to go with it. And after some deliberation, button makes a comment that my play feels trappy, and even though he has a small piece, he decides to fold. Last hand to run through, I raise a 30 from the hijack with 6-9 of diamonds. Big blind 3 bets to 120, and I call looking to do some things on certain board textures. Flop comes queen 5-4 with a club draw, so not a great flop, but also not the worst. I would have preferred to see at least 1 diamond, but I'll make do with a 3-card straight so far. Big blind down c bets 70, and I call looking to pick up a small to medium card on the turn to leverage. Well, force 3 comes a king of diamonds to erase all that hope, and after big blind bets large, that puts an end to this one. Alright, just finished the session at Bellagio, walking through the Aria and back to Park MGM to my hotel room. It's another late one. It's 5 a.m. Gonna wake up again to play in a poker tournament. Obviously, didn't even get the face ready to be on camera, but overall the game was decent. The 5-10 at Bellagio got off to a really nice start, but unfortunately that 5-6 of diamonds hand didn't work out for me, and that pretty much told the story of the night. Got in the game for 1,500, I added 600, and I did get back to even after I was down about 650 or so, but I ultimately cashed out 1,647, so book about a $450 loss tonight. I'll take it considering how that one hand didn't go for me. But that's gonna wrap it up for this video. I appreciate you guys continuing to support the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.